July 1945, Hull, Yorkshire. So, this was England. Summer warmth seemed to permeate the young boy's body as he disembarked next to the fishing harbour, catches being dragged in from the North Sea and taken to port. It was much warmer than the boat over, the boat he had almost missed. Hull, England. The boy looked up, as seabirds circled the near wake, taking advantage of the fish viscera having been ejected overboard as the fishermen prepared their catch before getting to shore, to sell it to the queue of housewives who would be waiting. The war was over, but food shortages were not. In fact, shortages of everything were not over. As the boy got closer to the city, he saw men walking around dressed in thin, worn garments. Children played in bombed-out buildings. Women pushing perambulators filled with anything except babies. Tall, blonde, the young boy did not know whether he resembled his parents, or if he was even in the right place. But he had his adoption certificate, and the marriage certificate of his mother, and it said England. It had been a shock to find out she was married, and not to the name of the man on the adoption certificate. Neither parent were the parents who had raised him. He had the name Scholz because that was their family name. "You need to get off now," the crewman told the boy, whose ear was caught by the English words. He had heard English words before. He had heard words that told of massive air raids over the port city of Hamburg, that have immobilized shipping, and the biggest land invasion by the Allied forces onto mainland Europe in history. That had been last year. But, in truth, the Scholz had been very generous in allowing him to learn English. Had he been old enough, he would have been drafted to fight. Even now, he had gone with the Pathfinders, camping and learning outdoor skills. He was too young to get properly involved. Had he been a little older, 2, maybe 3 years older, he would have been in the Hitler Youth, or maybe even the armed forces, Panzer Division Luftwaffe. The boy's mind drew back to his parents, now dead, from a raid at the beginning of May, just before surrender had come from Berlin. He shed some tears as he climbed down the steps from first deck to the one level with the key. His parents, who had loved him, and cherished him, and given him an idyllic childhood, and kept him from harm. The wind whipped them away, so they smeared on his cheeks. "Passport," the man at the gangplank demanded of the boy. He looked around wildly, and then to his leg. He had indeed managed to escape with a small case, in it another set of stolen clothes beside the ones he stood up in. What else was there to do? The house was flattened, his parents dead, the information he now possessed given to him a day later at the Rathaus in Hamburg by a flustered and very tired-looking clerk. He had money, at least, and the house contained a few possessions which he had managed to salvage and sell for a pittance at the harbour before he crossed the border into Holland. "Passport," the boy repeated. It told he was a German citizen. He was here, in England, in Britain, who were the victors. But the scene before him did not look very victorious. "Wait here," the man told him, and took his passport up, striding over to a red-faced policeman who had just got off his bicycle. Arms were pointed, between the boy and the ship and the coast and the boy again, then back to the passport. He held up his ticket as the policeman came back over. "And what is your business here?" the policeman asked, his ruddy face peering down to the boy's. The boy began, searching for the words in his own language before putting them together into English. "I come to find my mother," the boy told him. "See, I have my adoption papers and the name of my mother here." He held out a marriage certificate. "If you would go slower, please." For this, the boy got a scowl from the policeman. "You are German, are you?" he asked the boy. "I was adopted in Germany," the boy explained. He had had all of 2 days and nights to get it straight into his head, with the help of the town hall clerk who had taken pity on him. "It says here your father is a German," the policeman told him. "It says here he is," the boy nodded, and the policeman's words trailed off. "He is also in England, I am given to understand." All of them were, the members of the Uranverein, the uranium club who had been, outwardly, at least, manufacturing an atomic bomb for Adolf Hitler. And they had been taken, the lot of them, to reveal their secrets. They are now prisoners. And for the first time in 3 days, the boy's bright confidence of a different life, that he could move on from his Mutty and Papa's death pragmatically and easily, failed him. He bowed his head. Tears fell onto the grey, cobbled dockyard. "Take heart, lad," the policeman said, in an altogether kinder voice. "How old are you?" He glanced back to the passport. 12. He clapped the boy on the shoulder in a reassuring way. "You've come all the way on your own to find your mother aged 12. Not many boys I know of 12 could do that. Not to a country bombing your own, eh?" The boy picked up his head. The man was only trying to make him feel better, he reasoned. "Come back with me, bring your case," the policeman told him. "We can go to the station. Ave a brew, eh?" "Brew? A cuppa, you know." But the boy's face looked blank. The policeman sighed. It was harder than he had anticipated being kind to a waif of a child, even a Kraut child. "Tea, a hot cup tea, a biscuit?" That did it. The boy nodded, the meaning understood well enough. The last thing he had eaten was a slice of bread and an apple given to him by a sympathetic passenger coming in from Rotterdam who had sat by him on the quayside and got chatting to him for 10 minutes the night before. "I'm Constable Pickering," he added, as he nodded to the keymaster to signal everything was well. "Welcome to Yorkshire." "I am Skoltz," the boy replied, following the police constable along the quay. "Ernst Skoltz. And I am going to Downton Abbey, summer 1925. Not keeping under butler at all." Carson was not shy in coming forward with a repeat of Lord Grantham's words. Thomas Barrow lay on his bed, looking at the ceiling into the night as he thought of Miss Denker, the angel of doom, bringing news none of them wanted to hear. Thomas least of all, for, what was he to do? "I am well qualified to be butler, Mr. Carson, as well you know," Thomas told him. "Not here, you're not," Carson told him, as if he was going to live forever. Perhaps he needed to get away. Perhaps the roots he was holding on to were looser than he thought, the ground of Downton less reliable. Perhaps if he went for interviews, see what was about, they might see what was happening and be more inclined to want him to stay. And the topic did not go away the next morning, as conditions which might be employed by which redundancies may be made were debated. The postman came, and with him, 2 letters, both for Daisy. Thomas looked across, enviously. He had been persistent. He had written to Cambridge twice a week since the ... incident. Single people first, and equipped. "That's us, ain't it, Mr. Barrow?" Thomas turned, from scowling at Daisy and her good fortune to the new footman. "It might surprise you to know I am married, Andy," he told him. Andy stared back. "You apostrophe re ... making it." But he broke off when he saw Thomas's face. "I watched as she went from an illiterate child to a university academic. She works at Cambridge University now. Well, actually, she is over on the continent, Copenhagen," he added. But Daisy looked up. "No, Thomas, not Copenhagen," she told him. "Germany. And she's back now." Thomas Barrow's mouth fell open. But Daisy wasn't looking at him. Instead, she was reading her friend's words. She had told Milo about her outburst to Mr. Henderson over Mr. Mason. Milo had told her not to worry. You should stand up for yourself, and others. But think first before doing it. What kind words, Daisy thought. But her thoughts were interrupted when she realized everyone was staring at her. "Daisy," Thomas asked carefully. "Tell me again. She's back in Cambridge?" Daisy looked across to him. "That's what she says," she told him, moving just in time as his hand swooped in to try to grab the letter. "What?" Daisy asked. "Didn't you know?" "No," replied Thomas Barrow, sulkily. "I didn't bloody know." 88,888,888. But he did know when Mrs. Hughes invited Milo back to stay at Downton. "Now, I've agreed with Mrs. Crawley she can stay at Crawley House," she told them all, one luncheon, because she had sensed the tension between Thomas and his lack of letters. "She'll come then," Thomas thought. "No Branson. No him. If she's at Crawley House, maybe they could reconcile." For 3 months with no letters from Milo for Thomas was an agony he had not expected. "I wrote to you," Thomas told Milo, when at last she did appear from the York train in the middle of July. He had watched her disembark, half expecting a companion, maybe him, HB. But Milo was alone, and she had not seen him, nor Mrs. Crawley. Isabel Crawley gestured for Thomas to greet her. No one knew, of course, of his actions towards her. She stood still for a minute when she realized he was approaching, then said to him, "Take my bag, pretend we are talking." "We are talking," Thomas said, nodding to Mrs. Crawley. They went down the steps of the station. Over the field and around another road was Downton village. Isabel Crawley followed them, looking happily from Milo's back to Thomas's. "I have gone over and over this with you, Thomas. It's yours, the shop, the house, everything." "And the money?" "And you?" Thomas asked. He couldn't help it, he had to. "Do I still have you?" Milo stopped walking, and then flung herself onto Thomas, her breath catching in her chest as she began to sob. "I was going to suggest I stay from Göttingen. I have had an idea, with radio waves, to prove something in physics." "And you can do that, now you're here?" Thomas prompted. But Milo shook her head. "I cannot do that now, Milo," Thomas put in. "I cannot stay. Don't you see?" She shook her head. Thomas did not see. "What will you do?" he asked. "Go back to Cambridge. Get Thomson to put me on a research group, any research group." "I am grateful for everything you have ever done for me, Thomas." "Blackett is still there, Cambridge. He wants to move back to Manchester. His wife is there." But he had not been in touch with Thomas either, not even after Thomas had written. "I can use the transmitter receiver in the field, if it's still there. I can ask Mrs. Crawley if I can go up to the roof of Crawley House. I need an array, more like these, close together." Thomas sighed. They needed to talk properly, not when Milo had her head so deep into her work. He carried Milo's bag to the front of Crawley House, when the door was opened by Mrs. Bird, and Milo carried her own bag in without a backwards glance. Refusing the motor car, Thomas walked back to Downton Abbey. There she was, Thomas thought. If she does remember what he did, he mused. They needed to discuss it, urgently. "What's the matter?" asked Mrs. Baxter, kindly. "I've ruined her life," Thomas said, slumping into the easy chair beside the fire and lighting a cigarette. "You saved her life," Phyllis Baxter reminded him. "What's she got?" "She's given this all to me, her property, her money." Then Thomas looked away. "She's given up, can't you see? She was attacked by a prominent person in the area." He meant Branson, of course, but he had also done that too. Whether or not the law classed a man forcing his wife into sex rape, which it didn't. "The police." Thomas shook his head, and glared at Daisy, who had the impunity to try to come in. She turned and scuttled away. He beckoned Miss Baxter closer to him, and lowered his voice. "She will not. She considers it finished, but does not want to risk meeting him." "I should think so," Miss Baxter replied, remembering her own brush with illegal advances. She'd stolen for him, in the end, and all I've done for her was for selfish reasons. The Russians were gone now, and Thomas could make a clock business. It would give welcome stability, as opposed to the now daily suggestions of redundancies. "She's going back to the continent," Thomas confided, as Mrs. Crawley had confided in Mrs. Hughes, and unknowingly informed Thomas. Milo was leaving on the first train the next day, once she had arranged her transmitter. "All I want is for her to be near. She would have been here. She had a new plan, her own work, and now she has retreated from life. If only I could be with her." "Why can't you be?" Thomas gave a thought. This is all I know. I had thought she and I could work on timepieces in the shop. "You can still do that. She has given you this. You are a well-to-do man now, Thomas." But Thomas Barrow shook his head. I saw her when she graduated. She was so happy. So settled there, with people like her. He got to his feet, and pushed his way out into the yard. Phyllis Baxter followed him, waiting for him to continue. There was a muggy feeling in the air, like the humid feeling just before a thunderstorm. Thomas helped against hope. Milo wasn't going to try to attempt something with her radio antennae again, if there was a storm. But it was Thomas who broke, not a build-up of electrical charge. Her supervisor asked me to divorce her. I can't let her go. Miss Baxter, and she has just let me go. Ernest was going to be the face of it. I cannot. My father put the word around never to deal with me and clocks, poisoned every contact in a 50-mile radius. Ashby's timepieces would have been the best in Yorkshire. In England. He inhaled on his cigarette, looking in the direction of the generator building. If I tried it now, I couldn't pull it off. Milo is not her brother, and in service is the only other way I know how to earn a living. And now, he whimpered, the only shred of goodness and honesty in my life will be walking along Downton station.